Very good afternoon to all of you. It's such a pleasure to come in a gathering where leaders are bringing in different perspective around sustainability and are also looking at the intersectionality, including, for example, health in this. I'm going to focus on two things, of course. One is I will try to cover some of the trends which are happening, and then focus on four areas where I believe there is a need for us to deliberate further. And I'm sure in the subsequent sessions we will be having some deep dive in that. So with that, good afternoon, distinguished guests, officials, industry leaders, and esteemed colleagues, ladies and gentlemen. Today we have gathered here to recognize the efforts and award those who are working towards achieving sustainable development, specifically sustainable development at the intersectionality with health, and to discuss the current sustainable development issues faced by all. I mean, those of you who have traveled through Delhi today with the pollution levels growing definitely would attest to that. It's a privilege to stand before you today at this gathering. We are one powerful group if we decide to bring our capabilities together and start looking at how we create stronger coherence, convergence, and the ability to create a much larger impact. Sustainable development, in my view, is not just an ideal, but today it's a necessity. And the triple planetary crisis, which, those of you who are planning to be at the COP later, of climate change, pollution, as well as the biodiversity crisis which we are facing. Add to that the social inequalities which we are also seeing, which are getting exacerbated by climate change, is a significant area which touches all parts of our lives, including, of course, our personal life as well as our business. The UNFCCC as well as UNEP and UN Biodiversity are mobilizing resources and efforts to tackle these crises. But in my opinion, that's not enough. It needs not just the intergovernmental bodies, but it also needs all citizens, all stakeholders, including corporates, industry, the government, as well as the not-for-profit sector to come together and work on this. We are seeing campaigns like Race to Zero and Climate Neutral Now, and countries as well as corporates are committing to make greater commitment in this area. But essentially, unsustainable development rises when the need for immediate profit overshadows the long-term development aspects. And I think this is something which we are continuing to see. This plays out as a use-use conflict where, where a sustainable use versus an unsustainable use, where unsustainable use trumps the more sustainable approaches. And we are seeing, as a result, we are seeing an overall dilution of the natural resources on which multiple stakeholders depend. So whether we are talking about forest, whether we are talking about seas, whether we are talking about, the land itself, and then, of course, the air. One of the study says that, if you look at the biodiversity hotspots, more than 40% of the animal species found in biodiversity hotspots are at the high risk of extinction. And almost 25% are at very high risk, largely because climate change is also increasing the anthropogenic pressure. So, for example, currently we are working in Assam, and we are already seeing that the combination of climate change, the pressure it's putting on the forest, the pressure it's putting on the animals, and to those, the poorest, who depend on the forest for their livelihoods, it's becoming one gigantic pressure cooker. So, what we are seeing already is that it is an area which is increasing. What we are also seeing is that 90% of the disaster today are now being classified as weather-induced. We are seeing that being represented in cloudbursts. We are seeing that being represented in more frequent cyclones coming in. And this is again something which we are seeing that the trend is here to stay until unless we are able to make greater strides around responding to the climate issues. So that brings us to really the interconnectedness of healthy environment and business. As many of us know that one of the prerequisite of sustainability in business is also a stable environment, including the physical as well as the financial environment. And I think case after case is representing that in the face of unsustainable environment, it's not possible to run a stable business. And that I think we are seeing that whether we are talking about our coastal areas, whether we are talking about our islands, or whether we are talking about areas which are impacted by floods. Also, the other aspect is really about cost, so which is from the perspective of competitiveness. In fact, when I came here, I was speaking to some of the colleagues here who are also very focused on exports. One of the issue about not factoring in the cost of climate is also that we are seeing increasing regulation coming into play. So you may have heard of, for example, CBAM, which is coming into play, which essentially means that unless we are able to really look at the carbon footprint and the climate impact of production, our ability to be competitive is going to be questionable. So this again is something which we have to very clearly keep in mind. As we move forward in this space. Our Honorable Prime Minister, Shri Narendra Modi, announced a net zero by 2070 target at COP26 in 2021. And India submitted its first long-term strategy for low-carbon development in the following COP at COP27, which was last year. India has committed to reducing emission intensity of its GDP by 45% by 2030. However, when we talk about this, so the NDC, the National Determined Contribution, which has been talked about, I think at this juncture, if you look at how do we go about doing it, what we are seeing is that there is currently no clear pathway or a way to assess this collectively. So while I think there is some level of reporting which is happening on NDCs at the national level, there is some level which is happening also at the state level, but what is private sector contributing to it, what is government trying to do at this juncture is definitely up for clarity. Of course, currently, if you look at the updated NDC, it marks an important step towards achieving India's long-term goal of reaching net zero emissions. A new framework for transitioning to clean energy for the period 2020 to 2030 aims to increase green jobs, boost manufacturing of low-emission products, and India ranks 7th in this year in the Climate Change Performance Index. And no country performs well enough in all index category to achieve an overall very high rating. So the first 3 overall positions therefore remain empty, and Denmark remains the top ranked country. So if we are looking at this space, apart from the government, I think there are incredible initiatives being taken up by private sector. So at one end, for example, we have, for example, IKEA has developed an AI recommendation engine for which tailors product suggestions based on consumer sustainability preference, which is really trying to take sustainability into the consumer space. Or whether we look at, the greenest building in the world, the Edge in Amsterdam, Netherlands, which is considered to be one of the most sustainable construction design. So we are already seeing innovations and actions being taken up by the private sector. Similarly, in Kenya, AI-enabled sensors are being used to monitor biodiversity within agroforestry sector. Large companies are also using more and more sustainability through the supply chain route, where they are working very intensively with their suppliers and are ensuring that their sustainability initiative gets carried across the SME sectors, which contributes to their supply chain. And I think, again, there are multiple examples here. And what we are also seeing is that as a result, there is a rise of looking at new frameworks. So, for example, return on sustainable investment framework is something which is increasingly now being used to assess companies' performance and how they're contributing to sustainable development. Not really getting into more examples, but the point which I'm trying to make is what we are seeing is that across sustainability initiatives, governments seems to be more and more committed. We are already seeing private sector making significant investment. So if you really ask me what are the areas where we need to increase, where we need to accelerate, in my view, there are four. The first one is really about data and technology. So today, if you look at the fact around how do we look at GHG emissions, there is already one level of baseline, but every year this needs to be updated. So the government is compiling it, but it is being done in a manner where information is coming from multiple places. Can we think about a digital public infrastructure which gets built basis this data available? India has shown to the world what its capability on creating a common infrastructure on digital can then do to the ecosystem, whether you're talking about Aadhaar, whether you're talking about UPI. So think about this from the perspective of that if we look at creating data which is accessible by multiple organizations, then what would it do for reducing the cost as well as accelerating the ecosystem around this? And you can think about, how would then the carbon market respond on top of it and so on and so forth. The second part really is about looking at NDCs, but looking at NDCs, breaking it down, not just at a national level, but looking at how at a state level they are measured. So some of the states like Uttar Pradesh have started doing that, where they are engaging with the private sector, their own departments for greater measurement and reporting, so that whatever work is being done is actually being contributed in this. But that's again something which, within the data and technology work, which can move forward. And on the data and technology, the third thing which we ourselves are involved in is how do we really create much more of a single window approach, where instead of running around for multiple information or data points, there could be a single window access around data which is related to sustainability and environment. So that really is, in my view, around data and technology, significant acceleration can take place. The second area, and I think today's summit is also focusing on that, is really around intersectionality. I think it's impossible to separate out climate from social to economic gains. So when we are talking about, and of course, one example is health. So today, if you look at, because of the anthropogenic pressure being accelerated by climate change, we are seeing greater interaction between human animals, and as a result, zoonotic diseases are also supposed to be accelerating. So, for example, One Health has come into focus that how do we really look at human domesticated animals and the wild animals in one axis and create greater health capabilities. So, in my view, on the intersectionality, there is a need to do more data sharing, information sharing. Multiple companies are working on their ESG work, and so are the NGOs and the government. But really looking at how the intersectionality comes through is something which needs greater deliberation. The third point really is on innovation. One of the things which India, is famous for is in terms of both how do we respond to any challenges, and in colloquial term, which is called jugaad, but at the same time also how we are systematically building innovation with, through startups, through companies which are continuously innovating in the supply chain. However, the innovation which is happening, if you look at what is the level at which it is getting scaled, I think that's a critical area where we have to look at how innovation reaches scale with reference to socialization, with reference to either through enhanced business model where companies are able to scale it up faster, or through reducing barriers to acceleration of those innovations. And of course, also spaces where incubation and acceleration can take place. So there are a few incubators and accelerators, but can there be more, either hosted within the companies or hosted with institutions? And last but not the least, on partnerships. I think one of the core area where we can, definitely achieve a whole lot more if we are able to look at how do we, keeping everyone's interests in mind, but how do we create common spaces, forums, where partnerships can come together, which can work on a common identified goal and start creating impact, measuring impact, and reporting on that impact. So in my view, with these four, we would be able to do much better, create much larger impact, and start responding to the wider sustainability challenges as well as opportunities which we face. So with that, I wish all the participants a very informative and interactive evening in the future. And thank you so very much for giving me this opportunity to come and speak to all of you. Thank you.